Hi, good morning. Today we're going to be doing a little baby amigurumi owl. I hope you like him. Took some pictures of him yesterday. I was really pleased how he came out. In fact, look, he's still got a bit of the garden on him. That's off one of the trays because I popped him in the tray to take a photograph. So this is what we're going to do today. This is what we need for it. I'm using a double knit yarn. Again, it can be lots of colours. I've seen lots of rainbow owls and things like that, and they're gorgeous, or baby pink owls, all sorts. But I just thought I'd keep it sort of more of a normal owl colour, if that's right. So we have a little bit of yellow just for his beak. We have some cream for the eyes. 2 little buttons. You can use safety eyes if you wanted, but in this case I did decide to use little buttons. As stuffing, of course, and I have 3 different types of needles here, which you will find out as we go along the reason why. I have a 3.5mm hook, my favourite size. If you want to make him a little bit larger, you could easily use a 4, or maybe even pushing it to a 4.5 with it being a double knit, and of course a pair of scissors. So I'm going to pop all the bits to one side that we don't need. So, oh, and I forgot my little hedgehog stitch marker there from Rosie's Moments. So I'll pop all the other bits I don't want. I'm actually going to leave my button there, one button. I know that sounds a bit strange, but I'm trying to keep more to the centre of the screen, so I want a focal point, and it's going to be the button today. So we'll pop him over there as well. You can still see him there. And let's start with this yarn. It's a basic amigurumi style, which you will have done with me before if you've seen my videos, and it couldn't be any simpler. It nearly always keeps to approximately the same system. So I've made my slip knot and popped it on my hook, remembering not to tie it too tight. And I'm going to start just with 2 chain. And as soon as my 2 chain are done, I'm going to do 6 double crochets into that first chain. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and just 1 more. Remembering I am referring to English terms here, so obviously a double crochet would be a single crochet elsewhere. I don't know every country's versions, but on average you will see US or UK terms when you find a pattern, so that is why I'm just referring to those 2. So I've got 6 now. So like I quite often do for his little bottom for most of my amigurumi, I'm now going to do 2 double crochets into each one. If you're not sure where the first one is, count from the back. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6, because this sort of looks like a stitch, but it's not, so always count from the back. I'm also going to try and go a little bit slower. I'm very aware of time though. That is why sometimes I do speed up. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's 2 in each one, remember, that's your increase. So 2 stitches into the same hole, so just 2 double crochets. So now we should have, I've just tightening up that little bit because you don't want to see a gap there. So now we have 12 stitches. I'm going to do it again so we get 24. Now I'm going to count this time. I'll pop my stitch marker in on the next round. So we've got 1, don't want to move away from that button, 2, 3, oh, nearly split my wool. It's easily done. 4, 5, 6. I'm going to have to count here or else I will lose it. So that was 7. We're nearly there though. 8, 9. We just need 3 more. 10, 11 and 12. Right, so now we have 24 stitches. So I am going to bring in the stitch marker because then I don't have to think about counting. If you're in a quiet room, it's great, you can get a perfect count, you've got pen and paper and things like that. But if there's any distractions at all, or you're watching TV or something like that, it's always best to pop that stitch marker in. It's a little bit heavy at this point, but as the item gets bigger, it will be easier to actually use. Now on our next round, we're going to do 2 double crochets in the first stitch, 1 double crochet in the following 2. So over 3 stitches this is going to be, and you're going to do that 8 times. So I'll show you what I mean. We're going to do 2, it's an increase in 1, then we're going to do 1 in 2. Again, a very classic way of increasing with amigurumi. So we have 2 in 1, 1 double crochet in each of the next 2 stitches. So that's our second set. We have 2 in 1, we have 1 in the next 2. Because I've got my stitch marker, I'm not if I can speak, overly going to worry about counting. But you know, I think I'm on my 4th. I'm not sure, might be my 5th. But like I say, I'm not going to worry about it. I've done it long enough not to have to think about that too much. The stitch marker is where you're aiming for. So remember, 2 in 1 stitch, which is your increase. By doing it 8 times, obviously we're increasing 8 extra stitches on there. So we should have, if I can add up, 32 stitches when we get around to that stitch marker. So 2 in 1, 1, oh, caught again, 1 in 2. There's going to be one more. You can see how close I am to that stitch marker now. And 1 and 2. Right, it looks like it's starting to curl a bit. Can you see? Don't worry about that, because when you do pop your next rounds in, it will flatten it, because our next rounds are just 1 double crochet into each stitch. So it's going to be just 32 stitches round. So I will speed up here a little bit. I don't think really crochet is something you can crochet along with. I think it is something that maybe you need to watch, or if you know what you're doing, you can skip certain sections. Am I still staying in the centre? I think I am. Oh, a certain little pussycat's just come in the room. She's just jumped on the ironing board, which I normally put away, but it seems to be her favourite place to sleep at the moment, so I've left it up for her. And also it keeps her away from the wool, because she's the wool stealer in the house, so we do have to be careful with her. Right, nearly round for the 1. Can you see it's starting to sort of smooth out a little bit, but it's also starting to curve, which is what we want, because it's going to go around his bottom. Let's keep going then. Pen and paper is always a good thing at this point. I know we're going to go into the stitch marker, so we don't need to worry, because sometimes I've sat there going, oh, it's only 3 rounds, I can count that, and then I'll look up or I'll do something and I'll go, was that my 2nd or was that my 3rd? And you do end up forgetting. So that was my 1st. So we're going to pop round for the 2nd one. Please let me know which sort of method you prefer as far as me filming is, because sometimes I don't know whether perhaps I should go faster so people can sort of have a quick scan through it and go, oh yeah, I can do that, or whether I should go really slow and keep it more basic. Obviously everybody's at different levels, so I'm not 100% sure which is the best route for me to actually do it. As I've mentioned before, I know you can actually slow me down, particularly if you're on the computer. I'm not sure about if you're on your phone, but I know on the computer in the settings you can slow the speed of the video down, or actually speed it up, but then you want to turn the volume off because it speeds everything up, so that, or slows everything down, so the voices sound a little bit on the silly. So I would recommend you have a go at that if you want to slow it down or work at the real time with me. But I'm sure you don't want to sit and watch a video for like about an hour and a half of me just crocheting. Right, where we go, nearly there. I'm trying to remember, that was number 2. Can you see you have to be really careful with your stitch marker now, because it's not that easy to tell, you know. Okay, if you hang it you can see, but so I'm going to move mine up now. Move it up every so many rows with amigurumi, because your position does move. So we're going round for our 3rd round now, so we're almost at the full size of his bottom. Because even though these aren't increase rounds, when you do your double crochet rounds, your yarn is getting wider, up to a certain point anyway, and then it will start to straighten out to give you your shape. Where are we going? I've got to actually type the pattern up yet. It's still actually just written in my appalling writing. I've got it at the side of me just to remind me. Let's have a little look where we're on. Oh, we've got a decrease round next. So here we are, we're nearly there. Am I still staying in the centre? Yeah, not bad. I have to lean forward slightly. I must work out the camera system better, or a better stand, because I'm having to lean forward and it's not a great position to crochet in. There we are, we're round. So that is our 3 just single double crochet. So that makes sense. I've seen a problem when it's a single crochet or a double crochet, because you say single as in you do it once, but then single could also mean a double crochet. But UK terms, double crochets, so 1 double crochet in each stitch. That was for 3 rounds. We're now going to do a little decrease round. I will just remind you on the decrease. For 2 double crochets together, we go in, we start the stitch, we come out, we don't finish it, so I'm not going to pull that through now. We go into the next one, we grab the yarn, pull it through. We should have 3. If you've got 3 on, we grab the yarn and pull it through. That was your decrease, as simple as that. Now there's only going to be 4 decreases round on this one, so now I want 6 single I'm at it again with that single. 6 double crochets, 1 in each. So that's 3, 4, 5 and 6. Reminder on the decrease, we pull it through, we've got 2. We've not finished the stitch. We go into the next one, we pull it through, we should have 3. Pull it through all 3. And we have 6 stitches. 2, 3, 5 and 6. Decrease, so 2, don't finish it, end up with 3, pull it through, 6 double crochets, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We have 1 more decrease to go. So the next one, remember, don't pull it all the way through. Second one, we have 3, pull it through all 3, and then that should leave us 6 stitches if we've counted right, which I know it is, because you can almost see where we are with the stitch marker. So, and that was 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6. Right, we're now going to be doing DC rounds. I like to try and sort of keep the idea simple, so I do have a tendency to work in a lot of 3s. So again, this is going to be a round of 3, or 3 rounds of double crochet, should I say. So again, I'm not worrying about my stitch marker. I did do a decrease, so sometimes you have to be careful when you've done one of those, because your stitch marker does feel as if it's slightly out of place, but I'm not going to overly worry about that at the moment. The beauty of amigurumi is you can get away with murder if it's an extra stitch. It's a terrible expression, isn't it, really? If there's an extra stitch, it won't really mind. If you're lacking 1 stitch, it doesn't really matter. Only if you're going to be mass producing an item will that become an issue. But if it's a one-off gift, no one's going to sit there counting your stitches. Nearly there. So that's our first round done. Remembering now we've decreased, so we've only got 28 stitches, so we've got a little bit less to work with. We're going to be decreasing again in a little while, just to give him that little curvy shape. This is our second round of 28 stitches. I can hear the cat scratching the ironing board. She's a nightmare for it. I've just bought a new ironing board cover because I use it actually more in my craft room than to iron. You know, ironing clothes doesn't exist if I can get away with it, but I do use the ironing board for various crafts, and my husband will iron his stuff, so that's why it's up in the craft room, the ironing board. But so she likes to roll around on it and scratch it. So as much as I've got a new cover, it's going to look like a cat scratching post pretty soon. But I suppose it stops her scratching the rest of the furniture, so I suppose it's a win-win for the sake of a new ironing board cover. Right, round we go. This is our last round of those 3. It's quite a nice yarn to use this. It's one I do use a lot of. It is a Stylecraft yarn. It's not an expensive yarn, but it's also not cheap, if that makes sense. It is to buy financially, it is a cheap yarn, but the quality is not cheap. It is one of my favourites. I've used lots of basic yarns over the years, but the Stylecraft one is definitely the one I'll come down on, and the colour choices are phenomenal. They're quite easy to get hold of. There's various shops that do it, or again, easy enough to do it online. I'm very, very lucky because I've got a friend who's got a craft shop. So if I'm needing any wool, I can just pop down, and 99% of the time she's got what I need. So that makes my life nice and easy. And also it's a good excuse to go down for a chat and sometimes a cup of coffee. Right, we've done our 3 rounds now. I'm going to do another decrease round, and it's going to be, again, it's going to be 4. They will be evenly placed around. So our first decrease, as I say, you pull through. You grab the second one. We have 3. You pull it through. We're now going to have 5 double crochets. Get back to the middle. 2, 3, 4 and 5. Then we have a decrease, and then 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Decrease. This is our 3rd decrease, so it's going quite quick. 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. There's just 1 more decrease to go. So you can see how it's curving round into like a little basket. 1, and then we got 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. You see how the stitch mark looks like it's moved slightly, because I've done 2 sets of decreases now, so really I should move it up, because otherwise it's going to throw me just slightly. So I've just tucked it in just underneath where I'm working. So we've now got just 2 rounds. We have 24 stitches now if you're wanting to check your stitches, because we just decreased by another 4. So we're just going to have 2 rounds of the double crochet again. It's going a little bit quicker because we've got less stitches. It does make it easier. Also, if you've got any suggestions of any particular animals you'd like me to try, or any particular, I don't know, characters, again, like I say, I like to keep it within the time span, so something nice and simple, or something I can turn into something nice and simple. Or if there's any other items like flowers, or I can't think of anything now. You say that and then you can't remember what you're going to say. Right, but any crochet object, should we say. I know there's plenty out there for the basics, so perhaps that's not something I need to be looking at, but if you want to have a look, I will have a go. I've got some dolly crochet to do coming up, so there's going to be a mixture between the two. My favourite is my amigurumi and my little dolls, so you see, this is what I say about losing count and not writing it down, because I've actually forgot. I think that was just the first round, wasn't it? Oh well, if it's not, what happens is you make a slightly longer bodied owl. You could go really long and make him tall and lanky. You can make lots of different sizes. Where these plain double crochet rounds are is where you're going to get the length of the owl. So if you wanted a stumpier little owl, which would look quite cute, you would do less. You could knock off a couple of rows. Or if you wanted to do a really long, tall owl, you would just add a couple more in there. It doesn't really affect it that much. Your decreases always sit in the same position. Would look quite fun actually, having different sizes. Maybe a little set of them, all different size, heights and dumpinesses. Dumpinesses. I'm really making up words again. Quite like that though, dumpiness. Right, we're round. I was just talking rubbish. Right, we have another decrease round, but we're going to decrease a little bit more this time. It's going to make 6 decreases. So you're going to do 2 together, 2 separate DCs. So 6 times. So 2 together. I think we've worked that one out. Yeah, you're doing really well with that one. And 2. I like the system of decreasing. It's just easy. I know somebody commented that I think it was for the decreases, the American system's different. I was not aware of that really. This is one I've always done, but she was just saying how it is easy to do the English terms. I suppose it's what you've been brought up with or what you're used to. There we go. So 2 and 2. So this is bringing it in quite a bit. 2 and 2. So 2 together, 2 double crochets, and we're there already. We're round. You can see how it is now closing up nicely. I usually like to get rid of that thread because it drives me mad, so I've just tucked it in. I know it's already tight because I tightened it up earlier, but do make sure it is nice and tight before you go any further with it. Now, we're going to be looking at stuffing in a minute, but I think I can go a bit smaller than that. I avoid putting the stuffing in because it catches on the hook, so it does drive me mad. So we're now going to do another 6 decreases in this round, and it's going to be 2 double crochets together, 1 double crochet. So we do 2 together, 1, 2 together, 1, all the way around. So we don't really need to think about counting for this one. We're going to take the stitch marker out in a moment because it's really a little bit redundant apart from getting under your fingers. They're brilliant things, we really do need them, but they do drive me batty sometimes because they get in my way. There we go, and just one more. Right, we can get rid of that now because we're not going to be doing anything that's going to involve that much counting. So I will pop that there. I think we need to be stuffing this now. So I'm going to just pull that long so as I don't pull any stitches out. Done that loads of times and it is very frustrating. And I'm going to get my stuffing. Now with the stuffing, if it's a bit clumpy, I do recommend you sort of just pull it about a bit because it does make the item softer. Sometimes you do get lumps in your stuffing bags, and if you just push it in like that, it stays lumpy inside the object, and that makes it a little bit hard in places, and I don't like that. So I like to make sure my stuffing's nice and soft. You can decide how fat or how thin you want to make him at this point. Mine is quite a little chunky fella. I keep referring to him as a him. I don't know what he is. Your little boy, your little girl, I don't know. Your little owl, that's all that matters. Right, so I think that's about right. Now, because this gets in my way, I do push it right down while I continue crocheting because it catches in the hook and you get little bits of stuffing through and it's not a nice look. Right, next bit, easy peasy bit. We are just going to be 2 together all the way around. The hard bit of this is keeping it tight. So 2 together, pull. I'm going to tighten every time. 2 together, take your time with this bit. Tightened. Because if you don't, you can get little holes. They're not big holes, it doesn't really affect it that much, but it just looks loose. So when I do my 2 together, it gets a little bit hard to do. Pull, tighten. So I'm just pulling this one every time I've just done my 2 togethers, and it just pulls it a little bit tighter. 2 together, pull. So it's harder to see, but keep going. You need to try and complete this hole. Oh, there we go. And together, tighten. You can see we've got only a tiny one. I think I need to try and fit one more in there. If you don't think you can always stitch that last bit in. 2 together, tighten. So I'm tightening all the time. My last stitch, as I try and always do now, is a slip stitch because I think it just makes it flatter when you're actually doing the work for sewing up later. So we can pull that through. So there we go. Let's give him a little squidge around. Looks a little bit, he's about the same size, isn't he? So we have our little body. Now, as far as the eyes are concerned, I've sort of cheated a little bit because, again, you don't want to watch me make 2 sets of everything. This is the first little eye I've got, and there's a little wing. I'm going to go through both of them. We'll do the wing first because I've already got this yarn out. They could not be simpler. So, slip knot, not too tight on the hook. It starts exactly the same as his bottom. So we have 1, we have 2, we have 6 double crochets into that first chain. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6. I'll just move him over in case you can't see the stitches properly. We are now going to do 2 double crochets in each. Again, it's just exactly the same. Most amigurumi is like that. Obviously there's bits of shaping and that in certain ones, and you will get the odd one where it has got different stitches, not all just double crochets, but on average that's what it is. So that's 2, 3, remember this is just 2 stitches in each one, 4, 5 and I'm just going to do one more for this one. Now you could leave it at that, give him a little round wing, but I decided just to make it a little bit more oval in shape, and the only way I'm doing that is, again, really simple, but it will be other stitches. I'm going to do a double crochet. In the next one I'm going to do a half treble, so it wraps around in the space. Pull it through, oh, or not pull it through, pull it through. We have 3 stitches, pull it through all 3. The next one I'm going to be a treble, so we go through 2 and 2 for a treble, and we're going to do another treble in the same one, a 2 and a 2, another treble, a 2 and a 2. So you've got 3 trebles all in the same one there. Then we're going to do a half treble again, so you wrap your yarn, pull it through. Now instead of a treble going 2 and 2, we pull all the way through, and then I'm going to just do a double crochet, and I'm going to do a slip stitch to finish off. And you can see we get an oval shape, so just adding in those extra few stitches at the end just gives him a little bit of variety. So now we do have 2 little wings. How quick was that? Now the actual eye is even quicker, because it is the same system, we just need a circle this time, so we don't have to add those extra stitches on. So using the cream, again, you can use a white, you can use whatever colour, depends on your colour scheme of your owl. So we do our 2 chain, and we do our 6 double crochets into that first chain. That's 3, 4, 5 and 6, and exactly the same as the other one, we're going to do 2 double crochets into each of those 6. So it will give us our 12 stitches. That's 1, 2, 3, 4. It's going to roll across my thing in a minute. 5, and just one more. We've got our 6. You want to double check that you've got your quantity. Now remember to pull this nice and tight. This is why that slip knot at the beginning is important. If it's not a good slip knot, it won't tighten up. And I'm going to do a slip stitch just to finish off, like I did with the wings. So we'll cut that. So now we have 2 eyes. Ta-da. Now, as I said, I've done this one before, and I am using little buttons. If I'd used safety eyes, it needed to have gone in before we closed it up, which can make it tricky to get in. I mean, it looks nice, I have done that on several occasions, but I just decided I got these little buttons, so I thought they'd look quite cute. Now, I've actually sewn the button on before I sew it onto there. You can do it after, it's just easier to get to, I think, for that. Now I think as far as the sewing on is concerned, this is why I've got 3 different needles. I've got a sewing needle here, already got a little knot, I've actually been organised, and I'm just going to take it through, grab my little button, and all I did was a couple of stitches to hold it in place. Again, please remember sort of what age group is going to be receiving these items. I don't think they are suitable for very small children. Yeah, you'll know your own child though, whether they are sort of suitable or responsible enough. But again, you wouldn't want to give these for a little tiny one, because these buttons could come off. And I know my grandson's like, he chews everything. So if he was chewing this, eventually that button would come off, and Pop might get a mouthful of yarn, which isn't very nice. So also it's easy to hide your stitches if you stitch this on first. 1, 2, so that's stitched on. There we go, a bit shorter. So that's the reason for that particular needle. Now I'm going to use this one for sewing onto him. So this one's a little bit redundant, apart from one thing. I find it quite useful for placement. So we're going to get our normal, as you know, I like my sharp-ended ones, but this is what I class as my regular needle for this. It is slightly small on the eye area, but I prefer the precision of a sharp needle. So all I'm going to really use that for, I should have got rid of that first, but just to show you, I'm going to push it through, and I'm like, okay, it holds it in place, and it gives me an idea if that is where I want it. So we'll go with that. We'll go with that. Right, my stomach's rumbling. That's because I've not had any breakfast yet, but I am going out this morning, so I'll probably have a snack then. Right, so pull it through. Now, far as stitching is concerned, I like to sort of stitch slightly under, if that makes sense. So my first stitch goes under, but you know how you've got these two here? Some people will just catch this one up, which gives you a ridge. That's okay if that's what you're looking for. Some people will take both up, but I think that makes it bulky. I like to take the top one up and pull it round. So as you can see, I'm just going under it. So I'm not on the edge because I don't want to see stitching here. And then I'm going to pick up the top loop and bring it round. So slightly underneath where I'm working. My stomach's rumbling again. I don't know whether you'll be able to hear it on it. And with the top stitch. Because it's a circle, you do have to watch because it is very easy to change its shape. I think I went a little bit oval on this guy. So remember that top one I'm picking up. Now can you see how what it does? It sort of tucks it in. That might not be the look you're going for, and if it's not, fair enough, you do whatever system works for you. But I do like mine to sort of fit quite snug next to whatever I'm working on. So as I say, I'm just picking slightly further in underneath, and the top one. You can see his little eye coming. Where are we? So slightly under. Oh, can you see what I've done? I pulled it too tight there and it's changed the shape of his eye. That's why you do have to be careful when you are stitching. And it is about being patient. I'm not going to stitch around any further because there's a couple of things I need to show you. But we would continue round. I'm nearly there. In fact, I'm there, so I don't know why it's only going to take a second, isn't it? Here we go. So, stay at the top one, pull it in. I think I'm going to have one more. Taking the top stitch and pulling it in. Now here, as I do this, I'm just going to make a little knot. Pull it slowly because you'll get lumps if you don't. Pull it tight, and then I'm just going to thread it through. Again, don't pull too tight because it will affect the shape. And push it through his body, and then fasten off. Oh, I hope I just didn't snip the yarn. Be careful when you do that. So we have a little eye. He's going to look very strange because I'm going to be doing him all one-sided really. Now, as far as the wing is concerned, for this one, you need to get rid of this first because that's not what you're going to be stitching on with. So we need to get rid of that. With the eye, you could hide it inside, but the wing, because it sticks out, you can't hide it. So I do want to get rid of that. So I'm going to take it up to the top where I'm actually going to be doing it. There we are. I've kept the bit where I've done the trebles, etc. at the bottom and just the DCs at the top. So I'll get rid of that little bit of yarn. I'm getting a bit messy on here now. And we will push through the needle. I'm still using my sharp one. I think that's an okay position. I'm going to stitch like from there to there, and then it allows that to flip out. So I'm going to pop him here, work out roughly centre. Obviously when you're doing on the other side, you need to make sure his wings are equal. Again, I'm doing exactly the same. I'm picking up the top stitch, not the bottom one or the full one. Like I say, it does create different effects. That it just depends on what you're doing. I just think generally for joins on amigurumi, it does make it a little bit neater if you pick up the top one. Single stitch, you can sometimes jump a couple, but be careful because you don't want gaps. I think that's about it. Yeah, you can see how it curls up. Again, you can actually make it stick out if you put a little bit of stuffing underneath. And I think I did, was it the chick I did like that? So you can change the shape. You don't have to do it how I'm doing it. This is just an idea. And also for those who are beginners, it's just a way they can try it and see whether they like it. We can get rid of that as well now, can't we? Because that was the bit that just held his eye in place. So we have a wing, we have an eye. I think I ought to really get rid of this top bit because it's getting in our way. Again, you know what I said earlier, you know, if this looks like it's got a bit of a hole, if you're careful, it's like darning. You can take it through, take it through, take it through, and it sort of fills the hole in. But hopefully if you've done it tight enough, you don't need to do that. Right, so we can get rid of that one. I like to get rid of all the ends. It's a lovely feeling. I hate sewing things up, but I get a lot of pleasure from it being sewn up, if that makes any sense. So we have a wing, we have an eye. We need some little tufts. So I'll put the other needle to one side a second. I've dropped my yarn on the floor, so bear with me. Oh, I've dropped it again. I've got it. I'm creaking on the chair. That is the chair, not my bones. Right, so I'm going to cut probably too long, but I like to work with longer lengths, but depending on how much yarn you've got left, you do have to be careful. I'm cutting 6, or I will be. I'm doing 3 for now. It needs 3 on each side. We have 6 in total, but 3 for each side. So I'm just going to fold that in half. This is way too long. I have done way too much yarn, but I think it's a little bit easier for demonstration as well if I do that. So I'm going to take the traditional wool needle, the one with the really big eye and the blunt end, because I'm hoping I can put all 3 through. Can I? Yeah. So I'm not pulling it all the way through, just to about there. And we're going to go from the front rather than the back. So decide roughly where you want his ear. I think about there. We're only picking up the one stitch, don't make it too thick, and I'm going to pull it all the way through with that bit. Remember, I've still got these strands. Oh, look, you can make him a fringe. So we pull that through. I'm then going to separate this up so I can get each loop. I don't want to miss a loop. Make sure you've got them all. Then you can grab your fringe, pull it through the loop and slowly tighten, because sometimes one will come through. Can you see how one's there? It's a little bit sort of, that's it, tighter than the others. So do it slowly. I'm going to pull it down, and then really, really tight at the end there. Again, for young children, that is not a good thing, but you could add a little bit of glue anyway if you're a little bit worried about it coming undone, and snip across. I'd recommend you do both of them before you snip to make sure we do get the same length. We'll hold him sideways and he looks like an owl. In fact, he's a longer, aren't they? But you can trim that to whatever length you require. Perhaps if you made it a little girl owl, we could pop a little bow on there. That would look quite cute. Now, the last thing really to look at our one-sided owl, bless him, is the beak. Now, if you've done beaks with me before, this is, well, it's barely a beak really. It's the easiest one. I'm going back to my sharp needle because I do find it better to get in on that detail and it doesn't split your yarn. So I've got just a small length, long enough to manage though, and I'm going to make a knot because I don't want it coming out. Now I'm going to go from his back to where I want the centre. Where do we think? About there, centre of his beak. It's easier when there's 2 eyes because you can work out where the centre is going to be. So I'm going to pull it through. I'm going to make sure it comes all the way through, as in into the stuffing. So the stuffing should hold that knot. If it comes straight through, you need a bigger knot, that's all. I'm going to go really close to his eye, and I'm sort of guessing where his other eye is, but it should be equal anyway, so that is where the eye should come through. So I just pushed it through. There we go. Oh, a little bit tight. Don't pull it tight, it'll pull your stitches. And back through. And that's it. That's as simple as it gets. Sometimes simple is best. Sometimes you need detail. I think in this particular case, I think simple has worked nicely for him. So I'm now going to stitch this through a few times because there's no knot on this last bit. So I'm going to just keep stitching it through a few times so it holds in the stuffing, because again, you don't want his beak coming undone. Got a knot at one end, but the other end hasn't. So there we go. I think that should be enough. Usually find 3 or 4 times is adequate for that. I'll pop my needles to one side. Love this magnet, it does make life easier. And basically, without me carrying on stitching it, that is it. As you can see, he's got a little friend now. I will promise to carry on with him. He will have a friend. He will just camera view, that's his best side. Obviously that's not. So hopefully you enjoyed that. Please have a go. Any comments, any issues, anything you're not sure about, please just send me a message. I'm always there to answer if I can possibly help. I will write up a pattern. I haven't actually, as I say, I'll show you. It's in a rough draft. But I will write it up and pop it on my blog, and then pop the link on if you do want to do it that way round. But please like, share, subscribe, etc, etc. And as I mentioned on my last one, something I've only just learned, if you do want to get my notifications, there's a little bell just at the bottom, and if you click on that little bell, it will say you'll receive notifications of when I pop something up there. So if you are interested, please do that. Every little bit of support helps as I'm trying to build the channel up, and hope to see you soon. Bye.